Canada's Gripen deal just entered a completely new phase, and this time, the shockwave is coming from the United Kingdom. The addition of a massive Rolls-Royce boost has transformed what was already a controversial fighter jet decision into a strategic earthquake, shaking Washington, Brussels, and the global defense industry. For years, Canada's fighter replacement program was framed as a predictable story. The assumption was simple. Ottawa would eventually fall in line with Washington and commit fully to an American platform. But Gripen changed that narrative, and Rolls-Royce may have just sealed its credibility at the highest level. At the center of this development is propulsion. In modern air combat, engines are everything. Speed, range, payload, fuel efficiency, maintenance cycles, and even survivability are all shaped by what powers the jet. By strengthening Gripen's link with Rolls-Royce technology, Canada isn't just buying a fighter, it's buying access to one of the most battle-proven aerospace ecosystems in the world. Rolls-Royce engines are trusted by NATO air forces, tested in extreme environments, and designed with long-term sustainment in mind. For Canada, this matters more than for almost any other country. Arctic operations demand engines that can start reliably in brutal cold, operate efficiently at long ranges, and require minimal logistical support. This is exactly where Rolls-Royce has built its reputation. The message is clear. Gripen is no longer a light alternative. With Rolls-Royce backing, it becomes a serious high-end contender, capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with heavier, more expensive jets. And it does so without locking Canada into a single-nation dependency model. That independence is what's causing unease in Washington. The traditional U.S. fighter ecosystem thrives on control. Control over software updates, mission data, weapons integration, and even operational permissions. Gripen, by contrast, is built around sovereignty. Canada retains control over its aircraft, its data, and its future upgrades. Adding Rolls-Royce into the equation only strengthens that autonomy, giving Canada a transatlantic powertrain partner instead of a single-source supplier. Economically, the implications are just as dramatic. Rolls-Royce involvement opens doors for Canadian industry, maintenance hubs, and long-term high-skilled jobs. Instead of sending billions overseas with limited returns, Canada positions itself as an active node in a global supply chain. That's not just defense policy, it's industrial strategy. Critics once argued that Gripen lacked the prestige or raw power of larger stealth platforms. But prestige doesn't patrol the Arctic. Prestige doesn't guarantee readiness rates. And prestige doesn't keep jets flying when supply chains are strained. Reliability does, flexibility does, cost-effective readiness does. With a Rolls-Royce boost, Gripen answers all three. Strategically, this move also signals a shift in Canada's geopolitical posture. Ottawa is no longer content to be a passive buyer. It is shaping its own defense future, balancing alliances rather than submitting to them. Gripen with Rolls-Royce power becomes a symbol of that shift. A fighter designed for national needs first, alliance compatibility second. The ripple effects are already visible. European partners see opportunity. Smaller air forces see validation, and competitors see a dangerous precedent. A top-tier NATO nation choosing capability and sovereignty over pressure and tradition. This isn't just about an engine upgrade. It's about leverage. It's about freedom of operation. And it's about proving that smart design, trusted engineering, and strategic independence can outperform sheer size and political weight. Canada's Gripen deal didn't just get stronger, it got louder. And with Rolls-Royce now firmly in the picture, the world is being forced to ask a question many thought was settled long ago. What if the future of air power isn't the biggest jet, but the smartest one? What makes this second phase even more explosive is how quietly it reshapes the balance of power inside NATO itself. Canada's Gripen decision, reinforced by Rolls-Royce involvement, isn't loud diplomacy. It's silent leverage. And silent leverage is what truly worries the big players. Behind closed doors, defense planners understand one truth. Air power is no longer just about stealth or raw thrust. It's about availability. How many jets can actually fly on any given day? How fast can they be repaired? How independent is the operator when politics, sanctions, or supply chain shocks hit? This is where Gripen, now strengthened by Rolls-Royce expertise, becomes deeply uncomfortable for its rivals. Rolls-Royce brings more than metal and turbines. It brings lifecycle mastery, predictive maintenance, modular engine design, rapid turnaround philosophy. These are systems built for sustained operations, not just airshow performance. For Canada, operating across vast distances with limited forward bases, this translates directly into real combat readiness. There's also a psychological shift happening. Once a country like Canada proves that a non-US fighter, enhanced by a British powerhouse, can meet NATO standards without surrendering sovereignty, the spell is broken. Other nations start asking dangerous questions. Why pay more for less control? Why accept operational restrictions? Why tie national defense to political permission slips? That's why this Rolls-Royce boost matters far beyond Canada. It normalizes choice, it legitimizes alternatives, and it weakens the monopoly logic that has dominated Western air forces for decades. Operationally, Gripen's philosophy aligns perfectly with Canada's defensive reality. Dispersed basing highway operations, minimal ground crew, fast refuel and rearm cycles. When paired with a globally supported Rolls-Royce ecosystem, these features stop looking like compromises and start looking like doctrine. Meanwhile, cost efficiency remains the silent killer. A jet that flies more hours, needs fewer spare parts, and demands less infrastructure doesn't just save money, it multiplies force. 10 available aircraft outperform 20 grounded ones. This is the math defense ministries don't like to say out loud. Politically, Canada gains something even rarer: negotiation power. With a diversified supplier base, Sweden for design, the UK for propulsion, domestic industry for sustainment, Ottawa is no longer boxed in. It can push back, it can negotiate upgrades on its terms, and it can adapt faster than systems locked behind a single gatekeeper. Even the Arctic equation changes. Engines proven in cold weather reliability reduce risk, shorten response times, and extend patrol endurance. In an era where northern routes and resources are becoming strategic flashpoints, this matters more than stealth brochures ever will. Critics will still point to fifth-generation labels and radar cross-sections. But wars are not won by labels. They're won by jets that launch, fight, return, and launch again. The Gripen Rolls-Royce combination is built around exactly that loop. In the end, this isn't about Canada choosing a fighter. It's about Canada choosing a philosophy. A philosophy that values readiness over reputation, control over compliance, and smart alliances over automatic alignment. Part 1 shocked the industry. Part 2 changes the rules. And the most unsettling part, this model works. That's why everyone is watching Canada now, not as a follower, but as a test case for the future of Western air power. The third phase of this story is where the real consequences begin to surface. And this is the part most analysts are still avoiding. Canada's Gripen decision, now reinforced by a powerful Rolls-Royce dimension, is no longer just a procurement choice. It is becoming a reference model, and reference models are dangerous because they spread. What Canada has effectively demonstrated is that modern air power does not have to be centralized, permission-based, or financially suffocating. By aligning Gripen's operational philosophy with Rolls-Royce's engineering depth, Ottawa is quietly proving that a mid-sized power can design a first-tier air force without surrendering strategic freedom. Inside NATO, this is causing an identity crisis. For decades, Alliance air power revolved around a few dominant platforms, controlled upgrade paths, and tightly managed supply chains. Canada's move introduces friction into that system. If one of the most trusted NATO members can step outside the traditional gravity well and still remain fully interoperable, then the old arguments begin to collapse. Rolls-Royce plays a critical role here because it neutralizes a long-standing criticism of Gripen: scale. Critics argued that Gripen was clever but limited, efficient but lightweight. Rolls-Royce changes that perception entirely. Its involvement signals durability, scalability, and long-term confidence. This isn't experimental engineering. This is institutional-grade aerospace power. For Canada, the implications are operationally transformative. Engine reliability directly affects sortie generation, especially in remote northern regions. A jet that can operate from dispersed bases, endure extreme cold, and return to service quickly after landing becomes a strategic asset rather than a liability. With Rolls-Royce-backed sustainment philosophy, Gripen's already high readiness rates become even more politically inconvenient for its competitors. Then there's the issue no one likes to address publicly: control in wartime. Modern fighters are software-driven systems. Who controls the updates? Who authorizes mission data changes? Who decides which weapons can be integrated and when? Gripen's architecture already leans toward operator sovereignty. Adding a trusted non-US propulsion partner further decentralizes control, making unilateral restrictions far more difficult to impose. This is where Washington's discomfort quietly grows. Not because Canada is abandoning the alliance, but because it's redefining how alliance participation can look. A Canada that flies Gripen with Rolls-Royce support is still NATO-aligned, still interoperable but far less dependent. That balance is subtle but strategically powerful. Economically, the long-term picture is just as disruptive. Rolls-Royce involvement strengthens the case for Canadian-based maintenance, overhaul, and engine support facilities. These are not symbolic offsets, they are decades-long industrial commitments. Skilled labor, aerospace engineering pipelines, and sovereign sustainment capacity begin to take root. Once established, they are extremely difficult to unwind. This also reshapes crisis response math. In a prolonged conflict scenario, nations with simpler, more maintainable fleets regenerate power faster. Gripen's design philosophy, combined with Rolls-Royce lifecycle engineering, leans heavily into this reality. While others manage complexity, Canada focuses on availability. Even deterrence changes shape. A force that can rapidly disperse, regenerate, and operate from unconventional locations becomes harder to neutralize. Deterrence is not just about the first strike, it's about the certainty of response. Gripen, enhanced by dependable propulsion and autonomous sustainment, strengthens that certainty. Internationally, smaller and mid-sized air forces are watching closely. Canada's choice gives them political cover to question legacy assumptions. If Canada can do this, why can't they? Why accept higher costs, lower readiness, and tighter controls when an alternative has now been validated at the highest level? This is why the Rolls-Royce boost matters so much. It removes doubt, it adds institutional weight, and it turns a smart aircraft into a strategic argument. By the time this process fully matures, the debate will no longer be about Gripen versus other jets. It will be about models of power: centralized versus distributed, controlled versus sovereign, expensive prestige versus sustainable strength. Canada didn't just buy a fighter. It invested in a future doctrine, one where alliances are strengthened through capability, not dependency. And that may be the most disruptive idea of all.